title of my series, Yonkeros, is a derivation of the English word junk, but with a more Spanish-friendly sound to it, yonk, and oddly enough conjugated grammatically in a very elegant, correct way. So, el yonke is the place, the junkyard, and yonkero is the person who works with junk. The word has a nice ring to it, has a nice feel to it. Sometimes I relate to it metaphorically as a kind of a sense of how we are here as immigrants. Something that might start in an unorthodox or even outside of the normative becomes matter of fact, becomes a fact of life, becomes regular. Willets Point has been in the media lately. It's a contested land. There is, on the one hand, more than 40-year struggle between New York City and mechanics who work and own the shops in Willets Point. And in a more recent twist to this political drama, which had to do with the old Shea Stadium where the Mets play being renovated and transformed into Citi Field Stadium at a cost of almost $1 billion. So that put a kind of urgency on New York City to get rid of Willets Point, to renovate and rezone and transform the area economically to better suit that expensive stadium. So it's been in the news lately, not in a high-profile way, but certainly some attention has been put on Willets Point, and I found it interesting at that level. I also remember seeing a movie called Chop Shop, an independent film that was shot with local actors out in Willets Point. It was a fantastic film. And both things together, were enough to get me to visit for the first time. When you go to Willets Point, it's very surreal. On the one hand is the stadium, and across the street is this place that hasn't had sewers or sidewalks for decades, absolutely neglected. And it's a very sharp contrast. Visually exciting to see things side by side. And the first day that I arrived there, I also had a strange feeling, like I had maybe woken up, opened my eyes in a photograph from Walker Evans' Depression-era America. So I immediately saw that landscape as a black and white landscape and started shooting, the first day that I was there, started shooting these strange cars that were suspended in the air. So it was kind of magical. I remember I shot maybe 10 different frames of cars in the sky, and when I got back home and I looked at the images, I knew that I would be back for more. I've always had an interest throughout my career in hybrid identities, so the complexities of a globalized society and economy, and how one person might transplant it into a very unexpected place, myself included. I've lived in Israel. I grew up in Guatemala, and then I moved to Israel when I was 17 and studied at Hebrew University in Jerusalem. And after that, I spent some time kicking around Europe and eventually to settle down in New York. I came to do a master's here at the School of Visual Arts. And my own identity is very layered, so I appreciate that in others as well. And Willets Point is like visiting Latin America for me. As soon as I get there, I speak Spanish. I got to be friendly with all the mechanics and hear their stories and engage them on a personal level, almost from day one, really. There was a connection that made it relevant. There's many aspects to the place and to the people. Nobody lives there, really, except for this one Italian guy who's lived there his entire life. It gets absolutely emptied out at night. So it's a place of work. And as a place of work, provides a very useful, very essential service to families who are lower income or lower middle class families. And it's fascinating to see them bringing their cars and the kind of cars that they drive and what that says about their station in life and their expectations for the future. So part of my interest was just looking at the people, at the customers who come and need the service that is provided there. Part of my interest was the mechanics and their stories. Some of them are very checkered. There's a lot of people who come to Willets Point looking for redemption. It's kind of a revolving door, and that's their last stop. And they're trying to make a go of it. And a lot of people find legitimate work, steady work, and it's very transformative for them. Yonkeros started in the spring of 2010, and I spent a year photographing. I want to photograph every season, spring, summer, fall, and winter. So a year was enough time. It's actually a pretty small stretch of land. It's, I would say, in terms of city blocks, maybe 10 square blocks. Willets Point sits right next to Citi Field Stadium and across the East River from LaGuardia Airport. So it's a trek. I would get out there as often as I could and shoot for a whole year, 8 square blocks. And it was fascinating, and I kept finding more and more images. Every project has a kind of shape, and the shape of Willets Point, of Yonkeros, became apparent to me after a few trips out there, and it had to do with the fact that Willets Point is a vast accumulation of parts. So there's an element of repetition, an element of being a catalog, and every catalog is a poem. So I kept coming back, aware of the politics, but more interested in a kind of lyrical truth, just a visual truth. And, you know, there are certain projects which are photogenic, you could say, just like people are photogenic, just like you can take a great portrait of somebody almost effortlessly and spend a great deal of time trying to make somebody else look okay in front of the camera or interesting or connect with them. Willets Point is an immediate connection. You almost can't go wrong if you're photographing metal, chrome, oil, rugged faces and bodies, kind of lunar landscape that is Willets Point. You can't go wrong. It's made to order for a photographer. So in that sense, I had many opportunities to create powerful images, visuals. But I always try to connect with the story as well, with the people, their struggles, their personalities, the way they decorate their shops, and the camaraderie between them. Never lose track of the human element, right, for the formal beauty of the photographs. And after a year of working Willets Point, I conducted a fundraising campaign on USA projects. It was very successful. So the next year I've spent working on the book for the project, and I'm very close to completion. Many of my projects start as an invitation or a commission from an institution, so a lot of them involve signing contracts and negotiating ahead of time, venue, presentation times, production schedules, honorariums, all of that kind of stuff. Willets Point was a project that I did purely out of my need to create the work, out of my need to re-examine some of my own identity, as a Latin American photographer, reconnect with Latin America and New York. And there's many things I could say about that, the kind of identity-based exploration which is represented by this work. It's less obvious, perhaps, to a viewer, but it's there. There's also another level at which I reconsider my relationship to the city of New York, and how it's changed over the years and what kind of city it's becoming. I've been in New York half my life at this point, over 20 years. And and it's changed dramatically. In places like Willets Point or Coney Island, treasures of the city are being wiped out for the sake of another TGI Fridays or Hard Rock Cafe or some corporate thing that we don't need. Seriously, we don't need any more of that stuff. We do need community. We do need places that are special, like Willets Point.